Well, welcome back, everyone, to the Real Profit, Real Perspective podcast. How are you doing, Ryan?
I am fresh back from vacation, man, so I am doing awesome.
You
How
are.
about
That's
you?
why I wanted to skip the intro here a little bit and just immediately find out how you're doing because I know you've been out of town for a bit. So good to have you. Good to have you back. You didn't have to give me another week of recording on my own.
Right? Yeah. Hey, it's okay. You can say that you want to do it by yourself. It's fine.
Look, I wouldn't want to lie to you. Like live like this, I save that for emails.
How how quickly we've gone from favorite co-host to recording by yourself.
Well, you know what they say. Fame is a fickle mistress, and she doesn't like to share. But no, glad we're here today. You fresh back from vacation. What was it? You got back yesterday, I
Likewise,
think.
man. Yeah, we got back 2 days ago, and
Ah,
the week prior to that, like you were just referring to, I was sick. So it's been a couple weeks of
sick.
ups and downs.
He was sick,
Just wanted an extra week of vacation.
dude. I don't blame you. It's been Monday and it's already been a long week. You get things going and then you're like, man, where did the day go? Also, shit, I forgot to have lunch and we've got more things to do and nothing ever stops and there's
Hmm.
never enough time. And oh, hey, look, it's Tuesday.
Yep. Yep. It's 5 p.m. on Tuesday already.
Like, where did all the time go? I should get up earlier, but I'm so tired in the morning. Like, there's no winning. There's just never winning. So you had an idea for today's episode that I didn't want to give away in the beginning, and I wanted to let you have the honor
Oh
of
man.
putting your really cool idea forward. So what is it you had thought about talking today?
So it was kind of a spur decision from a client meeting I had a couple weeks ago, coincidentally when I was sick. And it was an interesting discussion between me and my client, and it's kind of a recurring question I've had across folks I've talked with, and especially business owners. So I think at its core, my big question is when should you invest outside of your current business versus reinvesting into your current business? Or put more simply, when do you start a second business?
That's an interesting idea, particularly when you consider everything we've talked about is from the perspective of how do you build your first one. Let's jump straight to the end and assume that you've made it through the first 5 years and haven't failed like half of them do in their first five. That's an interesting idea. So when you say invest in your current, what do you kind of mean by that in this context?
Yeah. So, sort of laying the baseline for that, I think what I think about when I say, investing into your current business is sort of backwards, like not taking money out of your business. Like you are any profits you're making that you want to, decide whether, hey, do I pay myself this? Do I use this to buy something else in my business? Like, for my clients, content creator, creative type people, um, you buy a new camera or a new
Hmm.
software that you've been looking at, or any business could reinvest into marketing and advertising to theoretically grow your current business faster or more. So I think when I look at a question like that, I sort of try to calculate like this internal rate of return in my head, and I think that can kind of overcomplicate it a bit, but that's how I think, like what's the threshold at where I can take money out of my business and make more on this other venture than I would if I dumped it more and more into something like marketing, like
Hmm.
buying more ads where more people see your product or service and they're like, hey, I want to buy this. So your business grows.
Interesting. So for you, do you kind of look at it as like a purely rate of return, as in maximizing revenue and profit is kind of the primary objective, or for you, if you were thinking about doing it, would you start to bring in kind of qualitative factors to it where it's not solely about what's going to make me the most money, but, for example, also something I want to do? How would you, if you were thinking about doing it with your business, what would that, how would that kind of look like for you?
Yeah, dude, it's a good, I think, dichotomy between the two. And that's where the financial advisor in me starts to come out is the diversification part of it. As a business owner, I think you can have really concentrated wealth in your business. If you are running a multi-million dollar business, you're pretty wealthy from that business, right? But all of it is concentrated in one, essentially one asset versus like, if you buy an index fund in the stock market, you own 500 different companies, so diversification, right?
So
But
you're thinking about it more from the context of how do I protect my wealth from bad things happening, basically, something hurting the overall health of the current business.
yeah, I think that's one consideration of it, like balancing how I guess at its core, like one big question is how big do you want to grow your current business? And or how big can you grow it, right? And if you're at that point where maybe buying more advertising or something, or a new piece of equipment, maybe that's not going to really drive a significant amount of growth in the business rather than just like keeping the status quo. Like maybe it is a good idea to go outside of your business, or if your business is doing well enough, you may not be able to even spend all of the money you're making. So you have to put it somewhere else outside.
I
And that's where
think
you start getting into other ownership, I guess.
I think what you just described there, where you can't spend it, I believe it was, oh, who was it? There was a modern day philosopher that I've heard mentioned a couple times, and his his key thing that he talked about in the art that he put out was suffering from success. I believe that was DJ Khaled. You thought I was going to be legit for a moment, didn't you?
Like, where's he
Uh,
going with this?
well, you said, can't, oh man, I got all this money. I just can't spend. Won't somebody help me spend all of my money? I just want to find a nice Nigerian prince that I can give all my money to and really, really help. Uh, um, so for you, I know this is a little probably premature to think about this in your where things are right now. But for you, what would that look like for your business where you started to have that kind of discussion on either external investment, starting something new, or continuing to kind of pour resources internally? What because I know you've thought about it at least a little bit. What is that, even just as a hypothetical? 'Cause obviously we're still both working on our first businesses here, so there's a little bit of conjecture, a little bit of what we've seen. But for you, what does that kind of look like, at least in your mind, until you'd go out and actually do it and realize all of our preconceived notions are wrong, like they always are. But what does it look like to you?
Yeah, and you asking just even that question makes me think that service businesses are almost a little different from like a product based business where theoretically you could just continue uh, buying more advertising or something to sell more product, right? And people either repeat buy your product or you eventually reach the entire world. Like everyone in the world has one of your product and you physically can't sell anymore. But for a business like mine or yours where we bring on more clients, as first off as a solopreneur, we bring on more clients. We eventually hit our own individual capacity and we say, okay, do we want to hire somebody to help me on this, or am I good just coasting at my own personal capacity and doing something else or just riding off into the sunset. So let's presume that you hire more people. I think at that point, the cycle just continues. Like each of those, for me, advisors I hire are going to eventually get to their own capacity of, 60, 70, 80 clients or something like that. And you eventually just keep hiring more people and like stacking the pyramid, So at that point, how big can things go? I mean, the sky's the limit, I guess, at that point. So for me,
do you want to reach the sky? Are you in the midst of building the foundations of your own Tower of Babylon here?
Honestly, I have no idea. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I'm more at the point now where honestly, I'm still trying to reach my own personal capacity, and my vision at this point is to hire 1, 2, 3 other advisors at some point and continue to build the business in that way. But eventually, it gets to the point where you would be an enormous firm like a Schwab or a Fidelity or something, where the model changes a little bit at that point, I guess. But yeah, it's an interesting question, man. Like I think you kind of just have to make that decision for yourself as you go and say, do I want to continue to grow this, or would I be better off? I think, like you mentioned earlier, is it something I want to do, something outside of the business? Like for the client I mentioned, well, for complete anonymity, we'll change the business he was looking at to be, we'll say, a coffee shop or something, which personally I would love to own a coffee shop at some point. I think that'd be really cool. But, that's a totally different business model from what he's currently in. It's like, a retail restaurant food service business versus content creation and like video production type of thing. So, like I said, kind of from the diversification standpoint, like if you're, I don't know, a passive partner in this business or something, like you can theoretically throw out some money and get a return on it for not a whole lot of work while you still work on your business. But
So, gun to your head, do you want to see your name up there with the Fidelities and the Chuck Schwabs of the financial world? We want to have
no.
It's going to say Fidelity, Charles Schwab, the Bannisters.
Although I like the idea of that, I don't think personally that's something I would want, but also I don't think that's possible with, especially in my current like niche of clients. There's only so big I could ever get. And, maybe we'll get that big one day where we serve every single person in the entertainment industry or something like that. But maybe at that point we would be as big as Schwab. I don't know, but
you don't have that dream of selling financial products to quite literally anyone who breathes.
Not quite, man. And
$20 quadrillion in assets under management.
I was just looking it up for context, and I think Edward Jones is one of the biggest. I know they're one of the biggest. I was trying to find who the biggest is, but just for context, Edward Jones has 1.8 trillion assets under management, and that was in Q2 of 2023. It looks like they're trying to get to 2 trillion, which is just a crazy number to think about.
That's incomprehensible. Yeah, we have $2 trillion under management. It's like, man, I can't even contemplate a billion, let alone 2,000 billion.
Just insane. And
even 10 million.
Schwab's at 7.13 trillion as of August of 2022.
God, that's an unfathomable amount of money. It's not even real at that point.
No. It's ridiculous.
That's numbers on a screen. it's like all the assets that like Vanguard would have with all their ETFs and stuff, where it's like, yeah, technically they're the largest shareholder in what, like every company or something like that, but
Yeah,
it's not real.
right.
It's wild. So you don't want to have about $2 trillion in assets under management, mostly because you probably don't want to deal with all the paperwork that would be involved.
And I'll say again, hey man, see me when we get closer to that point, but maybe my mind will change. But as of this point, no.
The residuals would be how many millions per month? Maybe we'll consider.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But you know,
Do you have any thoughts of potentially buying like other financial advisor practices or anything like that? Because I know we've talked a lot, and I know there's a lot of CPA firms that have done this where it's growth through acquisition. So in terms of that investment in something else or investing in the current business, have you considered basically that investment in your business through acquiring somebody else?
I'll say I have and I haven't. Like I've thought about it, but I've never really done due diligence on it or anything. I do have a friend though in the industry who just was working with another advisor to buy out his book of business, and like you said, it's pretty common in the accounting world as well to grow by acquisition versus organic growth,
This organic
and
growth is hard.
it's very hard.
You gotta like go find new people. You gotta work on marketing and stuff and how you're presented and go through the consults and identify the problems and put together a solution for the client. Or you've got it, it's already there and you just get it.
Yeah, and I think it really depends on our first question to ask yourself, I guess, of how big do you want to or can you grow this business, and of acquisition is a super viable strategy to get you to that point, and in some industries it's probably the only way, I guess. Like the first thing that comes to mind is if you start a drink or beverage company or something, you come up with the next new hip drink or something, right? Like your either exit strategy or your next step to growth is being bought out, like by Coca-Cola or something like that, or you are the one doing the buying up of a company or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, at this point there is probably no literal realistic way, and I mean realistic as in you hand me Doctor Strange's time stone and allow me to look at 20 million different timelines. I don't think there's a world where some upstart like that is able to unseat Coke or Pepsi. It's just it's
Yeah.
one of those weird ones where they do almost feel, when you really contemplate what they are as an entity, it's almost weirdly, obviously cyberpunk is what usually comes to mind when you start to think large corporate entities and all that, but when you think of the fact that the entities continue to exist, in a way it almost feels almost Lovecraftian in that you've got these impossible to truly comprehend non-human entities that continue to operate and do things beyond the people that are actually a part of the business. Like it's one of those where even though people are at every level of Coca-Cola, for example, in a way it's like they're not even really in charge of it, because the business will continue to exist beyond even the people that are there. That's why it's lasted as long as it has. It's just, I don't know, it's one of those weird ones when you really think about it. I'm normally not one to say it's not possible, there's a route to it. But honestly, I don't think it would be possible to be the upstart to unseat something like that, because it's so, it'd be like trying to unseat the US government.
Yeah.
Like it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah. And which reminds me, I don't know if you saw this in the news recently, but Perplexity, the AI company, made an offer to buy Google Chrome.
I saw that. What was it? It was, I think, they offered $36 billion, which is more than the market cap for that company.
I think it was
Or
like somewhere like three times the market
the
cap of
value of
that
the
company.
yeah,
Yeah.
the company. I would love to figure out how they put that together and be like, so let me get this straight. You're offering $36 billion, which is about, we'll say, 3.5 times the most generous valuation of your company. And as we all know, Silicon Valley valuations have never been overstated in history.
No, that would
They
be
are
crazy.
they are always conservative in how much this business is worth. But they said, "Hey, we're going to leverage 3 to 5 times the value, the probably inflated value of our business to buy Chrome." Pretty certain their CFO spends too much time on Wall Street bets.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton.
Let's see if it pays off for them. We do you guys have that much money? We'll get an updated valuation.
We'll make it happen.
I mean, it's probably, if I had to hazard a guess, it's probably more of a PR move or a
Yeah.
marketing stunt than anything. Never mind the fact of all the data that then through Chrome gets fed to Google that then goes into its ad machine and everything else and blah blah blah. And that's why all I do is mention something that I'm interested in, and then I've got ads showing up everywhere. God
Out the
bless the ad
wazoo.
machine.
Yep.
It's like, how did you? Why? The one that irritates. I will say the thing that irritates me the most is getting QuickBooks ads. I hate that. I hate that so much. Where they're like, "Hey, this is the perfect solution for a small business." It's like, I fucking know. I have 40 to 50 clients that we deal with on your fucking platform every fucking month. What do you?
Every day.
Why are you invading my personal space with your fucking ads when I'm hooked. I'm in. It's done. You're not going to get any more. You cannot get any more. I already pay you thousands of dollars a month. Fuck off.
And now I'm gonna get QuickBooks ads because my phone just heard you say that.
It did, and my phone is going to hear me say it more, and then it's going to have things like, "Are you upset? You should try QuickBooks Payroll," and I'd be like, "Fuck you! That platform sucks." For legal purposes, let me say that it is my opinion that QuickBooks Payroll fucking sucks. Now we're both going to get ads.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
where were we? Oh yeah, Chrome. I don't know how they came up with that much money. Something. So actually, it was funny that you did mention this as an idea though, because I have been contemplating probably more towards the tail end of next year. But and when I was in North Carolina, I know, what was it, a month ago, we had actually talked about this when we grabbed lunch. Was now that the business is at a point to where the steady recurring is enough where I don't have to kind of worry about things. I've started to change my perspective on how I view new, not revenue sources, but the ways in which I could leverage acquisitions to grow the business. All right. Like, one of the things, there's a lot of bookkeepers out there, a lot of bookkeeping firms, a lot of solo bookkeepers.
Hmm.
One of them was realizing, with the core business, if I have my core in this box, right, and that takes care of overhead, operations, current people, and me, right, the money I need, want.
Want and need.
They need there should be a word for want and need. Desire is still want. I don't know if there's one that want the money that I want and need. That sits and stays taken care of. Then what I was thinking is, I could take, say, maybe even like a 60K a year bookkeeping practice, somebody who's on their own and that's what they've got. And I started thinking, going, okay, now if I, say, for example, didn't need to actually take any of that revenue for survival,
Hmm.
right? Purely from what do I do with the money? And say I take the person as well because they're tired, they want to effectively get bought out or something like that. And I say, okay, you're going to take that, you're going to take this work, you're going to come work for me. You're going to get folded in, right? I'll keep paying you the same. Basically, all that stuff is responsible. And I went, the idea then is not to make additional profit off of almost those dollars that you'd be buying, unless of course it's below market, or you can, through additional efficiency and things where you could take that person and then have them do more so they're actually generating more in addition. But just for clean hypothetical, I thought, okay, 1-to-1, they just keep handling that stuff, that's all they can do. And I went, one of the easiest ways in which we our upsell to advisory work, right, is to start with accounting and bookkeeping and compliance work. Like every single one of my, okay, with the exception of one, every single one of my advisory engagements has started with us managing the accounting, getting that squared away, getting everything taken care of there. And then once we had that solid foundation, then we were able to have discussions on, okay, now let's go ahead and see what we can do to help more. And so I was going,
Hmm.
I can basically take that whole cycle, and I don't, because I can pull in the money and pull in the person, but I don't need that profit. I don't need to generate profit off of that amount. It's separate. I have my thing that's taken care of and continuing to run and do well, and that's what feeds me. I could then look at this, basically getting effectively a business that would have a $0 net income, hypothetically, where then it gives me access to those operations where then we can provide advisory services, which makes substantially more on a per hour basis. And then basically obtaining, say, 60,000 a year, and then being able to turn that into 100 or 120 or 150 or whatever it is through additional service that's provided, is kind of the first, when you say invest internally into the business, has been the
Hmm.
one that I've really been considering as my next big step for really stimulating growth, is really that whole idea of upsell, which I hate using in this context because even though it is an upsell, it is a value add and we are helping clients with the problems that they don't even realize that they have. But
Right.
let's call it what it is. It is an upsell in service. And so it's been one of those where once things hit the point where my needs as the owner were met, and we've got processes and systems in place that work, that has kind of turned into the my first indicator that, okay, now I don't have to make money off of every new thing that goes on because I have this core thing that takes care of me. Now that this is good and settled and provides a solid foundation for everything else, now I can use that as fuel basically for what the next portion is going to be. And I
Yeah.
think going back to what you had said, how when you're looking to make that assessment, it's when you hit the point to where the business is operating relatively well and smoothly without you having to micromanage everything. I mean, I still do a ton of management, but when the actual operations and a lot of the day to day are no longer dependent on you and it continues to work and do what needs to happen and you are managing, that is when you start to hit that first point when you've got other people handling a lot of the day to day and taking care of that stuff. Now you have the time and resources to then focus on the next thing. We've seen clients that have royally screwed themselves over because they did too many new things at once and couldn't put in the requisite time to ensure that it's taken care of.
Right. That's where my head was going too with that, was the time cost essentially on your part as the owner. And you can almost use that as your threshold, really. Like, is your personal time worth going into something else, or are you still better off putting that into the business? And if you're like you mentioned, if the business is running essentially without you,
Or
that frees you up
with
to
minimal involvement, because
right.
I think a lot of them, even if we did, I like you still got to. Now we're weird in that because this is service and it's professional services and it's basically us. There is that element of we can't really disconnect entirely unless we basically just have another licensed professional to take that spot.
Yeah, and that's what I've seen people in my industry do recently that are similar firms to me, just way larger. They are essentially phasing themselves out to. I hate the word passive, like passive ownership, but they are hiring other licensed professionals that are going to be the main decision makers, and they essentially are like on the board at this
Hmm.
point, and still part of the business and get paid and own the business, but you've got other folks in the mix too at that point.
And I think that's the 'cause I mean, there's nothing better than the business continuing to operate and making a ton of money, and you don't have to actively manage it. But I think as anyone who's familiar with the concept of enshittification, I think that is the part when you've got the original owners, original management starting to get phased out in terms of the longevity of the reputation that you've built. That's your kind of biggest. I think that's the highest risk part is right there as you pull out is making sure that the
Yeah.
people who are going to be taking over that day to day run things like you would want them to run, which is one that from my longer term goals of because I don't I obviously we're not going to go big four or anything like that because again just like trying to unseat Coca-Cola it ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
But in terms of the size that my long term what I'd love to hit, I don't really have a ceiling on have I gotten too big, because all that just really means is it would change how I would view doing the business. Am I not helping clients anymore, and am I instead putting teams together and training those teams and acting as a resource for them to go out and help more people? Where can I take my knowledge, teach it to half a dozen different people, and then through those half a dozen different people help them help clients so that then there's more going on. um, that's my kind of longer term idea, but it's still the more disconnected you get, I'm like both looking forward to doing that but also apprehensive for how do we keep quality where it needs to be.
Right. Right. And the things that are specifically tied to you as the owner, and that is sort of the question I work a lot with clients on. For me in the entertainment industry, it's a lot different where your value or what you get paid on is essentially tied to your likeness, being physically on camera or recorded, singing or whatever you do. That I think is a struggle a lot of them face as well. Like, how do you branch out of a business where you have to be there, like record, you have to be on camera to make money. And that's it sort of gets back to what we were talking about with time cost and like where you're going to put your time. Like, I mean, you could build a team essentially at that point to take everything off you so that all your time in that business is spent on camera, and then you can use the rest of your time to do other things. Like, I don't know, the big example I use is like Mr. Beast, right? Like, he still does his main channel, but he also owns Feastables and Mr. Beast Burger and all that stuff. So it's possible, but just a different scenario, I think, than where like we are kind of not stuck in the middle, but it is easier for us in that case to phase ourselves out of a business like this, but still not 100% possible, I think.
Yeah, I mean, luckily for us with our main businesses, it is about meeting the needs of the client, and you can teach that to people. So
Yep.
there is an element where, unlike, say, a Hollywood movie star, like Brad Pitt, for example, is the Brad Pitt as an actor cannot get somebody else to act for him.
Right.
Like if he wants to, keep getting the big bucks from the movies, he has to continue acting. Nobody can act for him.
Yep.
But when you're in something like that where it's really difficult to kind of pull yourself out, I mean that's where you start to look at, okay, what resources do I have? So this is something I've actually been contemplating myself is, if I was going to have a totally separate business to the firm, what would I want? And so I was sitting there and was going, the problem with running a CPA firm is that you have to be a CPA running the CPA firm and be involved in everything. And it very much requires a lot of oversight and management and day-to-day involvement. I went, if I wanted to start something else, I don't fucking want that level of required involvement in every aspect because I'm ultimately responsible like that. And so I'm going, all right, well, services right out. It's like, game design maybe, and probably be hobby stuff, on the side. I'm not going to go and spend a shitload of money to get developers and stuff like that because if I don't have a clear vision and anything, that's more like hobby stuff. So I was like, we've got clients we've talked to where, people start looking at franchising retail locations, not restaurants, but retail locations.
Yep.
Would not recommend anybody. Well, unless you're franchising a big name brand like Bojangles, for example, which, man, I would love to get my hands on a Bojangles franchise up here in, Michigan, where there's not a whole lot of, Southern franchise. I mean, that's my like dream goal right now, but I need way more money. I believe their franchising requirements are 2.5 million in net worth with $1 million liquid.
Shoo.
Yeah. Not there yet. not there at all. Still trying to hit that zero net worth.
We'll check next year.
I'd settle for a net worth of not being negative right now.
We're gonna add this to our quarterly check-in episodes. I'm gonna ask you about the Bojangles franchise.
You're gonna start asking me my net worth, and it'll be really easy to gauge because I'm either gonna give a number that's gonna be closer to zero than the previous quarter, or I'm gonna be like, "Shut up! Why are you asking questions?"
Yep.
The number's getting worse. What the hell do you want from? What the fuck are you doing asking so many questions? What are you, cop? But I was actually going like, okay, so that's like a stretch. That's like a 5-year goal, right? Unless this whole thing blows up and suddenly it's like, well, shit, we're pulling in $100,000 a month, which, please, don't forget to like and subscribe. Please shill everywhere. I need to buy. This is my quest to get a Bojangles. I want my own Bojangles mostly because then I won't have to pay for lunch anymore. I'm going to spend $1 million so that I can have free lunches at my own location.
Oh, get some dirty rice every day, man.
Oh yeah. We can go. We'll have a whole separate like special episode where we can go over your opinion as a personal financial advisor on what you think the ROI is of spending $1 million to open up a Bojangles franchise for the perk of not having to pay for lunch.
My initial thought is it's pretty damn good.
So your run out period at the way we're calculating this at about $30 a lunch, 7 days a week. It will take you, let's see, that would be, let me see if I can actually do this math off the top of my head real quick. We're going to say, because everything's fucking expensive these days, $30 a lunch, 7 lunches, that'd be $210 a week. That would be $840 a month. That would be 8,460, just shy of 10,000 a year saved. That seems high.
No, I got 10,080.
All right, so 10,000 a year. We're gonna spend $1 million. 10,000 goes into million 100 times. So we've got about a 100-year break-even point.
And with the health costs you will incur from such venture, You
All right, we'll
may
push
not
it out
live
to about
100
a
more years from
like a
now.
like 150 or a 200-year break even point. Although I'm hoping at that point that the other business endeavors will then be able to afford the replacement organ therapy that we'll have to go through from having Bojangles for lunch 7 days a week.
Yeah.
I think there's a negative ROI on that one. But so back to my original point. Got off topic, or not off topic, rambled. But we're back. We're circling back around. And so I was actually looking at something like a retail, because retail lends itself, once you have suppliers, you've got processes set up for how you're selling and moving the product, who you're getting it from, what you're selling, that can operate on its own with substantially less owner oversight than something like a CPA firm. Right?
Yep.
Like you get a retail, like a vitamin shop or some shit like that. Right? Like you get something set up, you've got the stuff, you need somebody to man the store, somebody to keep eyes and check in to oversee, but you don't have to be there unless things are really, really bad, manning the store every single day. You set it up so that it runs on its own. And I think that's the other bit that I had been contemplating is when you're looking at that second business endeavor, if your first one is not the kind where you can really disconnect yourself from it, you want that second one to be something where you don't need to be the rainmaker, the day-to-day manager, the person responsible for overseeing everything, where it then can run on its own. Because then if your first business is again paying for you and taking care of your needs and the money that you want and need, then the second one doesn't have to have that drain on its resources to get things going. You're paid by the first. Your first has cash that's going to cover things. Now you've got the second one that can be set up to be a little more self-operating, and that's like franchises. That's how they get their thing going. Once you get the
Yep.
first couple, and I once upon a time heard that your first million is always the hardest. Gotta say,
Yep.
I really fucking believe it, because then once you have that and you have the resources generated, then you don't. I think the real key is then that second one. You don't need to feed off that. It can feed itself and then feed into other things.
It's like when the return that you're getting from the investment is higher than what you can contribute to it. That's when you're rolling.
When you take you've got your second one that then can feed into the third, and then the second and third can feed into the fourth, and then second, third, fourth feed into the fifth and sixth, and then it continues. That's where when you really get into the core of how you have these people that own all these different businesses, it's a lot of them usually will have the thing that they have to stay a part of, which for us would be our main core businesses because it's professional services. But then everything off of that can start to kind of exist on its own, in a way kind of mimicking like a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi that doesn't have one person ultimately responsible. It's got a board. It does have somebody who oversees operations, but they all get paid from the operations. But the entity itself generates its own profit without somebody having to kind of drag that down.
Yeah. Let me ask you, because my head immediately goes to a very common second business idea that I see clients have, and that's real estate. Where I think a lot of what we see on social media nowadays makes it seem like real estate is passive income, and a business model like you were describing where you can really disconnect yourself from it. What are your
I mean,
thoughts?
uh, we see it in two different ways. So we've got clients that their real estate is land and then their real estate is properties. Um, the land stuff can at times be a little more speculative. So I've actually seen with some of those probably an overall 50-50 break even, where half of them have continued to do well and grow, and the other half have ended up having to wind down operations and basically just stop because they couldn't get deals to be made. So in terms of that one, I know there's talk about undeveloped land and stuff like that. Is this, great, we'll tell you the secrets and stuff. It's like 50-50 shot. You've
Yeah.
it's either you got a 50-50 on whether it's going to work out or it doesn't, much like your marriage. Um, all marriages end in either divorce or death. Um, in terms of, the owning of real estate and rentals and stuff, it I have not had the chance yet to really play around with that. So I'm going to go off of what I've seen through clients. Some clients are doing really, really well. And it really, I think, gets into where, when they say, oh, passive real estate ownership and stuff like that. Well, it's generating money from somewhere. So what we are talking about when they say real estate investing, landlords. You're investing in being a
Yep.
landlord, one of the landed gentry, not just I own a house and it prints money. If it does, Secret Service is going to have some questions for you. Um, and a lot of that gets into where I think a lot of people, particularly first time landlords, get into trouble, or people that think it's going to be uber easy, is when shit goes wrong, you do have to pay for that. And
Yep.
that's where, because I have mulled over some of that stuff of what does all that look like, and I have to admit the part that for me makes me a little apprehensive is knowing the maintenance costs of actually owning property. And when you get it, you also have the mortgage. So rent has to obviously exceed the amount that you're paying for the mortgage. Otherwise, congratulations, you shouldn't have bought it in the first place. Now you're just losing money every single month.
You are in trouble.
You are what they call underwater. You better have another business that you're using to subsidize that and continue to pay that mortgage. Otherwise, guess what? The bank's going to be super happy because they're going to take it and they're going to sell it to somebody else and they've made their money. A lot of, I know there's people out there that in certain real estate markets, not naming any places where real estate has gotten horrifically overvalued, North Carolina. But there's speculative buying where people just buy it and their investment is basically waiting for it to go up and then they're just going to turn around and sell it, which, yes, it's passive, but again, you have to have the recurring cash flows to afford the mortgage unless you're paying cash. I think a lot of it, it can be passive if you have property management that is managing the property for you, and then you're
Yeah.
just not going to have as much money. I mean, there's some places, where you're talking maybe $200 or $300 a month in profit on, a property that costs six figures. And so there's that element of, yes, it's passive. Is it really worth it to commit capital to that? What's your margin of error? Are you going to go underwater on this property because you got hit with having to replace one HVAC unit and now you're out 10 grand and
Yep.
that just wiped out 4 years of rental income. The dream is always, passive income and you don't have to do anything. And usually I think real estate lends itself to a lot of grifters who try to convince you to, invest, and they'll set you up with properties and blah, 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 and all that as they sell. So it's like, yes, that's true, but with an asterisk of it's usually not as easy as you think.
Yep. Yep. That's honestly a good asterisk, I think, for any of this. Like,
Yeah.
Just think about your first business, like how hard that has been to start. And I think for the second one, you've really got to find something either, I guess, you're passionate about or like your Bojangles that you want, so you save on lunch costs or, I don't know, man, something like that where like you are just as willing to put the time and effort it's going to take to grow that business as you were with the first one.
Yeah. And it is one of those where once you do get through, kind of like raising your first child, once you've raised the first one, the second ones are easier. I say, being single with no children. My younger siblings are young enough. I think I get to qualify that.
You're like
a little bit.
grandfathered and brothered in,
Look, I've changed enough diapers to claim I know at least a little bit of what's involved in raising kids.
Yeah.
Oh God. But like once you get through the first one, you have a better understanding of what the rest of them are going to take. And you've gone through, it's kind of like when you hear the articles about, this person had, 10 businesses fail before their 11th one succeeded. I have to admit, after going through it personally, I start to go, A, how'd you have 10 of them fail? Obviously you were socking money away somewhere, but it'd be like, how, they can't, they always, it's like, oh, well, every new business loses money. No, the fuck they don't. I don't know who. That is copium that some people are huffing there to make themselves feel
Yep.
better when they're looking, going, oh my God, all my money disappeared. But, the reason why it eventually works is because they finally figured out the basic fundamentals that every business has to abide by. And then they realized if they stuck to those when they do their next, now it's fucking working. Like if they had done it on their earlier ones, it would have succeeded. But a lot of times when you hear those stories, it's people that didn't really know what they were doing over and over and over and over
Yep.
again until finally they got fucked over so bad the lesson stuck.
Yeah. I heard something the other day about that. It's like, with your first business, you are one doing the actual business, like bookkeeping, accounting, financial planning. You are also at the same time learning the game of business itself. And that's even harder than doing what you're trained to do. Like you're learning a whole new just way of being. And
Yeah, you have to, and again, this goes into like what gets every business owner is getting away from the thing you're good at doing and what pays you money and learning just, it's one where it's not until you go through it that you then understand why there are people that can be professional CEOs and do really well, because ultimately they just become experts in how a business needs to be structured and operated, and the core tenets that all of them have to hold to, and that is why they get paid the big bucks to basically go from company to company to either take it over and run it for a bit or provide consulting and stuff, where it's like anything. It's like learning a new martial art, or that where you have so many things you can't comprehend that you don't know, and it takes so much time until you've basically picked up enough contextual information that it all falls in together, and now it all makes sense. Now you're like, well, shit, if I had known that 5 years ago, I wouldn't be here today. Could have done this so much faster. I mean, I
yep.
realized from everything I've done over the last 6 years, like shit, the to set up a new business doing something now would be substantially easier, even just from like a paperwork or foundational process level of having figured everything else out. It's like if I got to set up a new entity to do whatever, easy. I already know what to do. I've already gone through with the first one. I've already built that structure. No problems whatsoever, can hit the ground running. Unlike when you have new people that go, oh, you mean I have to get like a business bank account, or I gotta like file paper. How do I file paperwork with the state for an LLC?
Mm-hmm.
Or oh, I gotta get an EIN. Or once they go through, they're like, okay, done. Paperwork done. EIN done. Payroll set up done. Business bank accounts done. It's ready. We haven't even gotten started, but as soon as it happens, we're ready to track books. All that stuff. I know what I gotta do. I've already got pricing in mind. It's once you've raised that first child and it doesn't kill itself or die from neglect, now your next ones are gonna succeed and do a whole lot better because now you know what not to do.
Amen, dude.
Assuming you've survived that part. Or the first one died and you went, all right, we'll try this, we'll do the same business again but tweak it a little bit, or third time's the charm. What was it, Monty Python? I built my castle in a it fell over. The second one burned down, fell over, but the third one it stayed up. Fucking love that movie.
Oh man,
I think ending on Monty Python is a great place to end this episode.
it can't get any better.
It literally cannot. I mean, we peaked with humor with Monty Python, and things have everyone's been chasing that high for the rest of the comedy history.
Yep.
So as always, if you've made it to the 54th minute of this, we appreciate you so much. We appreciate you so much that you should like and subscribe, or if you're listening to this on Spotify, make sure to follow and rate. And on both, leave comments on what resonated, what didn't, what we are fools about. Everybody loves to prove us wrong. If you can prove us wrong, I will drop ship a cookie to your address. You will just have to give me your name, your address, for tax purposes, your social security number, also your mother's maiden name, and what the first vehicle you have, and where you went to elementary school. And then I will send you a cookie through the mail in a credit card that I will open in your name.
And that'll be one good cookie.
And the next episode will be do not give strangers on the internet your personal information, you fucking idiots.
A case study.
Oh, you thought because we run a podcast that you should give us all your sensitive information. Not for the podcast. You do that when we're providing service. Just because somebody's on a podcast and sounds like they know what they're doing, don't just give off all your information. But, as always, we appreciate everybody that listened. Ryan, do you have any closing remarks? I know I've been talking a lot the last 20 something minutes.
I love where this one went, man. I'm really happy with it. Hope it was valuable for the audience, and I love talking through this stuff, man. It's good info.
Gotta admit, man, business is fun. Once you're at the point to where you're not going, what the fuck is happening like every day? I gotta admit, this stuff is fun. That's why we started doing this. This really turned into our second, business attempt, which was low cost, basically null. And fuck it, it's something new. Let's give it a try here and see how it works. So your second business also doesn't have to require capital. It could just be something new that you can do on the side, and it kind of can augment your current existing one. But as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Obligatory YouTube spiel. And again, if anything came to mind, let us know. Or if you hate what we said, also let us know. Hate feeds us. That's why we are CPAs. And we will see everyone on the next episode.